Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Q&Play, my monthly Q&A series where I answer your questions in a rambly, unscripted format. First question comes from Nicholas Adipietro. When you start having too many ideas for your campaign, how do you decide what to keep and what to cut? Ideas like monster encounters or large-scale conflicts. So, this is a great question, and frankly, my answer is probably dumb, but also I think simple and effective. New ideas always get priority. I am constantly getting ideas for Dungeons and Dragons all the time. I mean, at least 5 to 10 times a day, I'm getting a new idea for D&D because I take inspiration from everything I engage with. Whether it's a video game I'm playing, a D&D show I'm watching, just a normal show that I'm watching, hell, I could be listening to some kind of soundtrack and I'll get some idea for a D&D encounter or character or roleplay moment or whatever. I'm constantly getting new ideas and I generally prefer to take new ones over old ones. Now, usually I'll prefer to just use the new ideas later in the campaign. For example, I got a new idea for a massive northern continent with a volcano in the middle and ice around it, cool ice and fire theme of this northern landscape, savage and hostile, untamed wilderness, all the good stuff. But my current campaign is seafaring and I like the setting that I developed for it. Aora is the name of the continent and it's mostly just a bunch of free cities, Victorian themed, a little bit of steampunk, just a little bit, we're still in the medieval setting. But I still am going to use that northern continent perhaps later in another campaign. It's still there, it's just not used right now. However, sometimes ideas are not going to just be saved for later, they will instead override what I'm doing right now. So, my party are going to a location called the Blighted Shore, and I came up with the Blighted Shore years ago as a general location. Back then, it was a Lovecraftian swamp that held the center of a secret organization. Now, it is a land in a permanent autumn on the western frontier of this continent that houses cowboys with demon powers. Completely different concept, but I took the new one instead of the old one for a couple of reasons. The new one is fresh in my mind. I understand the new concept better than the old one at this point because I've been thinking about it for a while. And two, I generally like the new concept better, and it's just better for me to toss out old ideas. Old ideas are cool. Maybe I'll use them in time, but I put them in storage, brain storage, I guess you could call it, and use the new ideas instead. I just prioritized new ideas so that I can keep the train rolling my D&D game. Remember, your D&D game is weekly. You have some sort of time limit. Even if it is a little bit self-imposed, I like to put that in my head, like make sure that I have this ready by this time. The Blighted Shore is happening right now, so I'm going to use the most recent idea in my mind and roll with that. And that idea is demon cowboys rather than swampy Lovecraft mafia. That works for me, might not work for you, but yeah, when I need to toss something out, I prioritize new ideas. Next question comes from Goji3755. As a DM, was the most absurd thing that you've ever allowed a player to do, and did it require much improvising on your part for lack of applicable rules? I think there are a lot of crazy things that I've allowed my players to do. However, one thing that required a lot of improv because of lack of rules was they were fighting a group of werewolves, and unfortunately this is part of a larger RPG horror story, but this particular part was good. So they were fighting a group of werewolves, and they needed to destroy them, and they had no silver weapons, so they were resistant to everything the party threw at them. I didn't think this through, but what they did have were silver coins, and my friends were like, okay, you described that we scar the werewolves like a minor amount. Could we use the silver coins and try to stick them in the scars somehow to burn them or cause them to run away or something? And I was like, well, there's no rules for that in the book, but that's just such a cool idea. So we rolled with it. I just had them attack at disadvantage, and they got some coins off, and the more coins that they got into the werewolf's flesh, the more damage they took over time. It was a cool encounter, and frankly, the idea that the party came up with made it much more fun, because originally they were just hitting the wolves with resistance to damage and it wasn't really fun. But here, now they have more of a goal and it feels like they're being creative, and it was awesome. Look, if your players come up with something that is really cool like that, a creative use of their items in that way, even something as simple as just currency, try to roll with it, because it makes your party feel like they're in a sandbox game. A lot of people go into D&D with that video game mentality. The mentality of being trapped in the rules, like you can only do what is clear. But D&D allows for that creativity. It's a game in your head. So, make sure to, as much as you can, facilitate that creativity. Don't make everything super easy, like don't allow them to one-hit kill things because of their creativity, but at least allow them to get some advantage in combat using that creative thinking. And in my opinion, that's what D&D is all about. Question from Chris Checkers Lara. What was your first reaction on finding out that the once respectable / talented Dungeon Master Arcadum was a closet RPG horror story? This is going to be a long one. Now, I had not really interacted with Arcadum much other than just me looking at his Twitter and looking at reaching out to him for an interview. And frankly, thank God that interview did not go through. I don't think that would have worked out very well for me. However, other than that, I mean, obviously the whole story is horrifying. Arcadum's manipulation was really disgusting and frankly gross. I didn't have much connection to Arcadum or his content. I didn't watch any of the YouTubers that were a part of his games. I didn't enjoy his games myself. I wasn't on his Twitch channel. I wasn't interacting with him at all. So I wasn't like a fan who realized that the person that he was following is a terrible person. I was just watching from the outside and seeing, wow, this guy really, really sucks. I actually was working on the script for a video where I went over the whole story, but I decided to scrap it because I didn't think I had anything to add to it at all, and I still don't think I do. Now, other than the fact that Arcadum is a horrible person, we could look at the way he DMs, and JoeCat actually released a video about this, and obviously, look, this doesn't matter nearly as much. Like, being a bad person obviously overrides being a bad DM, but I thought that this was worth bringing up too. JoeCat released a video where he talked about his experience with Arcadum and why he did not enjoy playing in Arcadum's game and raised some complaints about him. And it's interesting because Arcadum has, as well as being a very controlling and manipulating person, he apparently was also a very controlling DM. Now, I went back and watched some of Arcadum's videos, and the ones that I did see, while I picked up on Arcadum sometimes taking control of what was happening, I didn't see it as much as JoeCat did. Obviously, JoeCat was in the game, so he would obviously have more perspective than I would as an outside observer. But what JoeCat said was that Arcadum would often take command. It was a very Arcadum-centered game instead of a player-centered game. Now, for a while, I also DM'd like that because my players didn't want to take the center. They were new. So often I had to push them along. They were still the center, but I did a lot of the talking because I often had to initiate roleplay interactions. I often had to plant ideas in their head. I still have to do that a lot because, again, they're new players and that's fine. Of course, Arcadum is not playing with new players or nervous players. He's playing with people who, for the most part, know what they are doing, or at least I assume. He's playing with a lot of YouTubers and content creators that are confident and okay with being out in the limelight, so he shouldn't need to play like that. So, obviously, again, this does not matter nearly as much as him just being the worst. But yeah, that's my whole thoughts on the Arcadum situation. Again, I don't think I have too much to add here. Arcadum sucks. He's not great, but yeah, that's all I got for you. Question from Peacock. What do you do besides D&D? I'm assuming you mean hobbies, because I do a lot of things besides D&D. Most of my life is spent not doing D&D. Fortunate or unfortunate, depends on your point of view. But yeah, other than D&D, a lot of my hobbies are just video games. I'm pretty boring. I like playing video games. I'll jump on and play something casual and something more story-driven. Like right now, I'm diving into Uncharted Lost Legacy, and I'm really, really enjoying it. That game is really good. My casual, just chill-out game right now is either Minecraft or Children of Morta, which is a phenomenal game that I can just sit back and play while listening to a podcast or something. Great stuff. I like playing music. I don't think I'm super good at it, but I do like playing the saxophone. I enjoy that a lot. It's a big part of my life. It has been for a while, and I just like playing. I don't think I'm ever gonna post my music because, again, I don't think it's very good, but I enjoy it. It's just a great way for me to relax and to get my mind off of whatever is going on at the time. I don't read as often as I'd like to. I'd like to read more. I enjoyed books a lot. But when the pandemic hit, I don't know why. I thought that would be a great time to read books and to get back into just reading novellas and short stories. And there are still short stories that I really enjoy. Like I have H.P. Lovecraft's entire collection on my shelf. It's visible. Destiny has some really compelling little short stories in their lore cards. Really good stuff there. But again, other than that, I don't really read much, unfortunately. I really want to get back into it though. There are a lot of books that I want to pick up, but just haven't yet. So yeah, those are my hobbies. Pretty normal stuff. Question from XionKuriyama. 1 hour to session. Usual DM isn't feeling it, but people still want to play. So you step up. You have an hour to improvise a one-shot. What do you do? And yes, this is a situation I was once in. That sucks. I have no idea what I'd do. Panic and not get myself into that situation in the first place. But other than that, I would probably pull out ideas that I had already prepared. So there are, like I said before in the first question, I throw out old ideas, and by throw out, I basically vault them. I just make sure that I have them on the side. I have a little book where I keep old D&D ideas and D&D ideas in general. I have a whiteboard where I have D&D ideas, and I have plenty of encounters prepped and ready to go. Ideas for sessions, even. Some encounters can build an entire session, like mermaids attacking the ship. I mean, sure, you can just have it be mermaids attack the ship, they get away from the mermaids, that's it. But you can actually build an entire session off of that. Have the players investigate where the mermaids come from. Have a whole plot about why the mermaids are attacking. Are the mermaids evil? Were they driven to attack by something that wronged them? Are they being controlled by some entity? Is there a mind flare in the mermaid's lair that's mind controlling them? Etc, etc, etc. You can build up all of this stuff. Now, I use Foundry to run my games, and I have a bunch of maps. Some of them, you could build an entire session off just looking at the map. Shay and Peacock are the ones that make the maps that I use. Their maps are amazing, and each one I feel like could drive an entire session. One of their maps is a ship that's in a jungle with like a gambling arena inside the ship. I could build an entire session around the party trying to plan a heist inside of that location. Using the resources I've already prepared is the way that I plan my D&D games in general, and it allows me to plan D&D games very quick and very effectively. Now, of course, I would prefer to have more time than just an hour, but I think I might be able to make it work. Alright, if you guys enjoyed this episode of Q&Play and you want to let me know, then please do leave a like. If you want to see more of my content, then please do subscribe to Crispy's Tavern. And finally, if you want to leave your own questions or thoughts, go down to the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment one last score to reference the game I'm playing in the background and to let me know you made it to the end of the video. And that's like, comment, subscribe. I will see you all next time. Farewell.